So while most horror games primarily focus on gameplay and atmospheric experience, or both, some of the best horror games are the ones that completely shock you with one of the biggest reveals you've ever experienced in a video game. Obviously, you don't need every horror game to have these big gotcha moments, but honestly, when they have them, it can make a simple psychological horror story one of the most memorable games you played once a big reveal happens. So on today's episode of Nerd Space Games, we're taking a look at 10 horror games with the biggest and most shocking twist that completely blindsided us. Oh, and this should be obvious, but since we'll be talking about twists in various horror games, here's a quick spoiler warning for you. Feel free to use the timestamps to skip horror games you don't want to be spoiled on. Before we get started though, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel for more survival horror content. Also hit that like button if you enjoyed today's topic. Finally, this video is sponsored by G Fuel, so you can support the channel by picking up a tub today of your favorite flavor by using the link in the description or using the discount code NerdSpaceGames for 20% off. Anyway, my name is Rubit with NerdSpace Games, and this is the top 10 most shocking twists in horror games. Let's get it. Number 10, Alma's son, F.E.A.R. From the very start of the game, you can immediately start to connect the dots and realize that Alma, the main antagonist of the game, has some sort of connection to the Point Man, the main protagonist of the game. However, until farther into the story, I doubt you'll be able to correctly guess exactly what's going on here. As it turns out, Alma Wade was a young girl who was experimented on for many years before her death at the age of 26. These experiments were led by Alma's father as he wanted to learn more about her psychic abilities and a company called Armor Jam. However, because she posed a threat to the scientists around her, she was put into a coma at the age of 8. At the age of 15 though, Alma Wade was impregnated to create an offspring that Armor Jam could control, and then impregnated her again right after when she was 16 years old. Therefore, Alma had 2 sons while she was in a coma. Then, when Alma Wade turned 26, her powers were growing and they became hard to control, so Armor Jam pulled the plug on her, essentially killing her. Or so they thought. Years later, the Point Man is hired to track down F.E.A.R and eliminate him for causing problems for the company. As it turns out, F.E.A.R is Alma Wade's first son, and he's doing what he's doing because he was able to eventually connect with Alma Wade and he wants to free her. It doesn't stop there though, because as I said, Alma Wade had 2 sons, and at the end of the game, it's revealed that the Point Man, aka you the player, is actually Alma's second son. This is why you've been experiencing hallucinations of Alma Wade and F.E.A.R when other people are unable to see it. Number 9, Left Behind, Soma. Frictional Games is one of the best horror game developers out there, most known for their work with the Amnesia series. However, one of their underappreciated psychological horror games is Soma. This game is arguably better in some ways, like how it features a more intriguing story front and center instead of your typical Amnesia formula, which involves most of the game's lore being hidden in files scattered throughout the game. Set in a distant future deep under the sea, the main protagonist wakes up to find himself in an unfamiliar place. After some investigating, he meets Catherine, who eventually helps him understand exactly what is going on. In fact, it's Catherine that reveals not one but multiple twists to Simon throughout the game. The first major reveal comes in the form of Simon realizing that he is no longer a person but rather a consciousness of himself that was uploaded into a suit. The real Simon has been dead for a long time. However, this isn't even the biggest blindside, as this occurs halfway through the game. The bigger reveal is when Simon realizes the truth of how the upload of his consciousness actually works. See, technically speaking, Simon and Catherine can upload a copy of their consciousness into other devices and suits. In doing so, they leave behind another version of themselves that'll wake up eventually and find themselves completely confused as to how they got there, similar to how the Simon that we are playing as right now woke up at the start of the game. Anyways, the main objective of the game is to upload both his and Catherine's consciousness into a device called the Ark, in which they can continue to live out in an artificial world in space away from an Earth that is dying. What Simon doesn't realize until the end of the game is that the version that he is right now isn't guaranteed to be the same one that ends up on the Ark. As said earlier, you're not actually transferring your consciousness, but rather you're copying it. And when you do that, some version of yourself has to stay behind in the original vessel. Apparently, each time you copy yourself into a new vessel, it's a coin flip as to which one that version of yourself will end up in.
Catherine!
I'm here.
What the hell happened? What went wrong?
Nothing. They're out there, among the stars. We're here.
No. We were getting on the Ark. I saw it. It finished loading just before it launched.
Yeah, I saw.
Then why are we still here?
Simon, I can't keep telling you how it works. You won't listen. You know why we're here. You were copied onto the Ark. You just didn't carry over. You lost the coin toss.
Confusing, I know, but long story short, after Simon copies himself and Catherine into the Ark, they both lose the coin flip, and Simon realizes that he's stuck alone in the dark deep under the sea, while a different version of himself lives on in the simulated world that he fought so hard to get to. Number 8, the hallucination, Dead Space. They Were Dead All Along is a twist that has been done multiple times in horror games. In fact, I have a whole video dedicated to that very topic, so definitely check that one out when this video ends. I'll have it tagged at the end of the video, and I'll also have it in the description. Anyway, one of the best uses of this twist was in Dead Space. As one of the best sci-fi horror games of all time, it might actually surprise you to find out that it also dives deep into the psychological horror side of things as well. Specifically, the main antagonistic force of the game, the Marker, plays a major part in messing with the players completely. See, the Marker pretty much does two major things that essentially cause all the bad shit to happen in the game. The first and more obvious threat are the necromorphs, aka space zombies. See, the Marker basically creates the necromorphs to feed its hive mind and continue to bring in more vessels in the form of dead tissues for one purpose: to protect the Marker. However, there's another defense mechanism that the Marker has, and it's arguably a more dangerous one. It can cause hallucinations for anybody within its vicinity and essentially manipulate them into doing whatever it wants, which again is to protect it at all costs. Well, throughout the game, Isaac, the main protagonist of Dead Space, spends a majority of his time teaming up with Nicole Brennan, Isaac's girlfriend. She's a scientist aboard this ship, and his last communication with her was a bad one in which their relationship appeared to be pretty much over. So after learning about what happened, his number one goal is to find her and rescue her. Well, he does find her, but she is on her own mission and tells Isaac that to protect everybody, they must return the Marker back to the planet where it came from. Well, at the end of the game, it turns out that things are not as they seem, as Nicole is actually a hallucination to Isaac, and she's actually a different survivor who the Marker is also manipulating. Long story short, Nicole actually died long before Isaac arrived, and the Marker has been using hallucinations to get Isaac to do whatever it wants him to do out of self-preservation. Number 7, Jennifer's Past, Row of Rose. Row of Rose may very well be one of the most disturbing and tragic survival horror games of its time, but it's also one of the most underrated survival horror games out there. Seriously, this game is one of my favorite standalone survival horror games, and if you ever have the opportunity to play this game, please do it. See, the story follows Jennifer, who wakes up in a flying airship surrounded by orphans. These orphans have formed a club called the Red Crown Aristocrats Club, and boy do they have some really strange traditions and rules. Throughout the game, we get to know each of these kids, and while they are definitely disturbing and creepy individuals, they also come with their own baggage and tragic backstories. Eventually, we learn the truth of these kids and the tragic past of Jennifer. Essentially, when Jennifer was a kid, she befriended the leader of the club, Wendy, alongside the other orphans of Rose Garden Orphanage. This is the sick girl that we've spent a lot of time with throughout the game, but we didn't know she was the leader at the time, as we thought Joshua was. Well, as it turns out, Joshua and Wendy were actually the same person throughout the game. See, going back to the past, Jennifer and Wendy were very close until Jennifer met a small brown dog named Brown. Eventually, Wendy grew jealous of Brown and Jennifer's relationship, and as the leader, she forced the club to bully Jennifer until she ultimately had the club kill Jennifer's new dog. Okay, let's stop right there. Not mine. Rule number 1 in horror movies and games: don't ever kill the dog or you'll piss off the fans. Just saying. Moving on, Wendy somehow thought this would bring Jennifer back to her, but it actually pushed her and the entire club away from her. Out of vengeance, Wendy pretended to be a boy named Joshua to manipulate a grieving father into punishing her friends. However, it backfired and the father went too far and killed all of the kids except for Jennifer. Then when he realized that he was manipulated by Wendy, he killed her too, meaning that the entire game was a way for Jennifer to kind of face her past and cope with the survivor's guilt that she had after the death of all of her friends and her dog Brown. Yeah, I told you this game was extremely disturbing. Number 6, The Truth of Mary's Death, Silent Hill 2. From the moment that the story of Silent Hill 2 begins, we all knew that there was going to be more than meets the eye with Mary and how she died. I mean, the game starts off with a grieving husband receiving a letter from his deceased wife telling him to come to the town of Silent Hill. Obviously, there was no way that this game was going to end well for anybody involved. Despite saying that though, Silent Hill 2 takes us on a journey that had a major impact on us, the players, and it left us with one of the biggest twists in all of gaming. Throughout the game, James spends most of his time searching for his deceased wife. However, as time goes on, he meets other survivors that are all searching for something as well. One of those survivors is Maria, a woman that looks like the spitting image of Mary. While this was weird by itself, things only got more messed up when we would watch Maria be killed by Pyramid Head only to be revived again as if nothing happened. Well, the town of Silent Hill serves a different purpose in this game compared to the rest of the series. The best way to describe it is that Silent Hill, at least the one in the second game, is purgatory, and all the monsters and things that James is seeing in this town are a way to torture him for the guilt of murdering his wife. Unlike what the intro of the game leads you to believe, Mary was actually killed by him recently, not 3 years ago, and there's hints to her body actually being in the backseat of his car. As for Maria and Pyramid Head, they are there for two different reasons. Pyramid Head was created by James to torment and punish James for murdering his wife, while Maria was created by him as a wish of how he wanted Mary to be and a way to distract him from what he really did. You can actually dive deeper into the different meanings of different things throughout the town after this major reveal. In fact, even 2 decades later, the remake of Silent Hill 2 added an Easter egg that kind of reveals another major twist. Every multiple ending of the game is canon, as this story and the original are both a time loop in which James keeps reliving the events of Silent Hill 2 over and over and over again, and he has been there for 20 years straight. Damn, talk about eternal punishment. Number 5, The Fate of Ethan Winters, Resident Evil Village. This is easily one of my favorite twists in a horror game, as it was one that I never saw coming, yet explained a lot of strange things that occurred in the previous entry. In Resident Evil 7, Ethan Winters goes to the Baker estate in search of his missing wife, Mia Winters. While there, he literally goes through hell, and I mean hell. I mean, he gets his hand chopped off, his foot chopped off, stabbed multiple times, beat to shit, like you name it. Poor Ethan went through hell. Yet thinking back on that game, it was kind of weird how much Ethan went through, yet he still somehow survived. I mean, at one point, the dude used some sort of bottle of some sort of liquid to reattach his foot. Like, what's going on here? Still, even with that in mind, not many casual horror fans really question this. We just thought, hey, it's typical horror gameplay mechanics. Nothing strange about that, right? Well, the big twist of Resident Evil Village revealed to us that there was more to it than that. See, when Ethan came to the Baker estate, and after he defeated a possessed Mia Winters, he was knocked out by Jack Baker. Or so we thought. As it turns out, Jack didn't just knock the dude out, he actually killed him. Meaning that Ethan died in Resident Evil 7 and he actually didn't survive the events of that game. Hell, he didn't even survive the first 30 minutes. Everything that we experienced after he was knocked out cold, from the Baker incident to the events of Village, Ethan was already dead. He was a molded creature created by Evelyn to be her new daddy. Somehow though, Ethan was able to live on his own, completely unaware of the truth regarding his circumstances, until Mother Miranda rips out his heart in Village and Evelyn reveals the truth to him near the end of the game. This was easily the best and most shocking twist of the entire Resident Evil series. Number 4, Remnants of Despair, Danganronpa 2, Goodbye Despair. Okay, so I know this next game is technically not a horror game, but because of the amount of psychological horror elements featured in this extremely disturbing thriller, yeah, I'm gonna break the rules for this just a little bit. Anyway, the Danganronpa trilogy is easily one of my favorite trilogies of all time. I know, that's crazy to say considering that it technically falls in the middle gray area of the two genres that my two channels cover, but maybe that's why I love this trilogy so much. And straight up, the best part about these games are the twists. I mean, the whole point of the games are built around shocking revelations. While different in each of the 3 mainline entries, each game mostly revolves around students trapped in some sort of situation who are forced to play a killing game in which one of their fellow classmates will become a murderer and they have to identify who it was or they'll all die. It's a really dark and disturbing plot, but one that sets the series up to be full of shocking twists. Still, out of every twist in the franchise, I can't think of one more shocking than the finale of the second game, Danganronpa 2, Goodbye Despair. While the first game reveals that Junko Enoshima was the mastermind, and the third game has a twist that is just completely bonkers, the second game turns a twist against all the protagonists of the game. As it turns out, Junko Enoshima wasn't working alone. Prior to the first game, she created an army of some sort who became known as the Remnants of Despair. These groups of students were responsible for spreading despair all across the world in honor of their leader, Junko. However, this group was brainwashed by Junko, and instead of being executed, a different group decided that they would try to bring them back and return them to their former selves, since everything they did wasn't really their fault. To do this, they put them in a simulation that would help them recover their original selves, but then an AI version of Junko Enoshima hacks the system and turns it into the next killing game. There's much more to explain than that, including the fact that one of the students is actually an AI herself, but honestly, it's so much to cover in a single video. Let's just say that those final 2 chapters of Danganronpa 2 are insane and extremely shocking, hence why the twist of that finale ends up here on today's list. Number 3, Not a Hero, Mouthwashing. Mouthwashing was an indie psychological horror game that completely shocked me last year. I didn't expect much from this game because of the art style and what I saw from the trailers, but man was I impressed by this game. Specifically, Mouthwashing shines the most when it comes to the story. It's a story that's deep and rich and completely mind-blowing, and I just want to say that if you haven't played it yet, skip this and come back to this later because I don't want you guys to get spoiled on this game. Okay, if you're still here, Mouthwashing follows a crew who gets stranded in space on their last delivery ever. Throughout the game, we're led to believe that the captain of the freighter had a breakdown and caused the ship to get damaged beyond repair. However, as we get closer to the end of the game, we learn more about the truth of the entire situation. Though we are playing as Jimmy, co-captain, and acting captain because Curly gets badly injured, Jimmy is not the hero that most of the game sets him out to be. He just thinks he is. In reality, he's actually kind of the villain. First, it's revealed that he caused the crash, not Curly, the captain. He did so because he heard they were all losing their jobs, and he was also scared of losing everything he cared about. Most importantly though, he was scared of facing the consequences of something else he did. That's because the second thing that he did wrong was force himself onto another crew member and get her pregnant. After learning about her pregnancy and learning that she told Curly, he had a breakdown and caused the ship to crash and get them stuck in space. However, because Curly was so injured, he couldn't tell anybody the truth. Jimmy, on the other hand, kept trying to help people, but in reality, he was making everything worse. He continued to harass one of his crew members, tricked another crew member into doing something that ultimately got him killed, murdered a different crew member, and even resorted to cannibalism at one point. Yeah, it's all pretty dark. And despite all of this, he still thought he was the hero when he found out the truth, and because he thought he was the hero still, he tried to save Curly by putting him into cryo sleep and killed himself. Number 2, Monika's finale, Doki Doki Literature Club. If you never heard of Doki Doki Literature Club, or you turned on the game for the first time thinking it was some sort of dating simulator, boy were you surprised after getting through that first chapter. Seriously, the game takes a drastic turn, and it turns out to be nothing like you were expecting. As I stated earlier, the game starts off as a dating simulator as you're getting to know 4 different high school girls, and you begin to build a relationship with each of them. However, over time, you begin to notice something strange is going on. It starts off small with a childhood friend appearing to be jealous, but as time goes on, she begins acting extremely depressed, and after talking to one of her friends, she unfortunately takes her own life. From this point on, the game begins to glitch out as if there's a bug in the game, and it restarts, only this time it erases your childhood friend completely from the game. So you start to experience the week all over again, but as you do, you begin to notice more glitches, and you also notice that 2 of the 3 remaining girls start acting violent and completely different from their formal selves. The only one that doesn't seem different at first is Monika, the president of the club. Well, at least her personality doesn't seem that different, but something does appear different in terms of the game itself. See, she starts to do weird things and make weird comments that don't actually make a whole lot of sense as a character in this game. This continues to get more and more noticeable and frequent as the other girls ultimately get worse and worse until they completely lose it, one dying and the other just being erased completely from the game, which breaks the game? Yeah, the game appears to be broken and the biggest twist occurs. Monika breaks the 4th wall and has a full-on conversation with you, the player. Not you the character, you the player. This finale is easily one of the most unnerving moments in all of horror games, as Monika spends a ton of time just teasing you the player and even saying things that she really shouldn't know, like how you might be recording her for footage without her knowledge. Yeah, that definitely happened to me. It was pretty freaky, honestly. I was terrified. Anyways, eventually you go to the file to completely delete her, but it doesn't go according to plan. The game resets, Monika puts the game back together because she regrets everything, and you carry on with your day with the other 3 characters, only to find out that your childhood friend is now breaking the 4th wall too, and has become obsessed with you, the player, again. Yeah, for fuck's sakes. Number 1, The Thin Man, Little Nightmares 2. Little Nightmares 2 easily has my favorite horror game twist of all time. It might not be the flashiest twist, but something about it left me feeling completely shocked and heartbroken about what I just saw. Anyway, if you went into this game after playing the first game, you already know that one of the characters in this game, 6, has a dark side. Seeing the things that she did near the end of the first game definitely makes you question every action she takes in this game, and even though this is a prequel, she still gives off small teases of what she will become. Despite that though, the new main protagonist of the game, Mono, is responsible for saving 6 multiple times throughout the game, and the 2 of them appear to be really close. Unfortunately, we know this won't last as 6 was alone in the first game, which takes place after this one, but I don't think any of us expected what would actually happen to Mono. Among other creepy villains in the game, Mono and 6 come face to face with a tall, thin, gray man. This man appears to be trapped in the televisions throughout the game, and every time Mono gets close to one, he tries to draw him into it. Eventually, the Thin Man succeeds, and in doing so, he uses Mono to break him out of his prison. When the Thin Man escapes his prison, he chases after the pair until he eventually captures 6, while Mono can only hide and watch helplessly. Still, because 6 is his friend, Mono follows the Thin Man and confronts him and defeats him with his own power. After defeating the Thin Man, Mono eventually finds 6, who has become possessed, and Mono then must save his friend once again. After doing so, the 2 try to escape the tower before it traps them inside of the tower, and at one point, Mono makes a leap of faith, expecting to be caught by 6, as he has done so many times before this, and 6 has always caught Mono. However, unlike previous times, 6 doesn't pull Mono up immediately after catching him and instead stares at him for a moment. Then out of nowhere, 6 drops Mono and walks away, abandoning her friend that she has helped so many times before. Well, it gets darker than this though. Mono eventually wakes up and realizes that he's trapped inside of the signal tower, and he begins to be influenced by it. For years and years of being trapped in this tower, Mono grows older and older in this tower, only to become the Thin Man himself. Yeah, as it turns out, Mono is the Thin Man, and due to some sort of time paradox, he became the very enemy that kidnapped 6 a while ago. My guess is that 6 realized that Mono was the Thin Man when she caught him at the end of the game, and that's why she stared at him for so long. Then after realizing it was him, she thought that by dropping him, it would prevent him from coming after her again. Considering the amount of acts of self-preservation that 6 commits in the first game, this doesn't really shock me one bit. However, little does 6 know, she actually created the very enemy that captured her by betraying Mono the way that she did. It's one of the most terrifying and unnerving twists in all of horror games, and I can't think of one that had me gasp more than this one, honestly. But that does it for this episode of Nerdspace Games. Hit up the comments and let me know what you think of my list. Does Little Nightmares 2 have the best horror game twist, or is there a different twist that you think deserves that title? Let me know down below. Anyway, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to my channel for more survival horror content. Also, leave a like on today's video if you enjoyed today's topic. But thanks for watching, and as always, I'll catch you guys on the next episode of Nerdspace Games. Take care.